I never thought a wheelchair ramp would turn me into public enemy number one. But apparently, in the eyes of one power-drunk HOA queen, helping my wife get in and out of her own house was basically an act of war. And when I say she lost her mind over it, I mean fines, threats, fake authority, and an actual security guard parked at the end of my driveway like I was running some kind of criminal operation out of a brick bungalow. All because my wife needed a way to get home with dignity. The morning the ramp was finished, the whole place smelled like cut metal and sawdust, that sharp, clean construction smell that somehow makes you feel like progress has a sound. The contractor was packing up, his drill whining one last time, while I stood in the yard just staring at it like a proud idiot. 3 months of permits, city inspections, phone calls, design changes, and paperwork. Finally done. And it looked good too. Not like one of those ugly slap-on ramps that look like somebody lost a bet with Home Depot. This one curved gently from our front door down to the sidewalk, brushed aluminum catching the morning light, sleek enough that it actually matched the lines of our old 1950s bungalow. Against the red brick, it looked modern without looking ridiculous. Then my wife rolled down it for the first time. Slowly at first. Then with this little smile that hit me right in the chest. No more wrestling with those 3 concrete steps. No more me acting like a human forklift every time we had to leave the house. Ever since her accident 6 months earlier, those steps had become this daily little insult, this reminder that the world was built for people who could stand up and just go. The ramp changed that. It wasn't just metal and bolts, it was freedom. Independence. A piece of normal life we thought we'd lost. We bought that house the year before, and honestly, it had felt like a miracle. Corner lot, quiet street, right beside a gated community called the Willows. Fancy entrance, manicured landscaping, little golf carts buzzing around like they were patrolling the kingdom. But our place wasn't part of it. That was made very clear when we bought it. Our house was an old outlot, built before the developers swallowed up the surrounding land and wrapped it in gates, rules, and self-importance. That was one of the reasons we bought it. We liked the nice area, just not the part where some committee gets to tell grown adults what color their shutters can be or whether their mailbox feels on brand. So we did everything by the book. Every permit, every inspection, every receipt, all neatly filed because I'm the kind of person who keeps documents like they're wartime intelligence. If anybody ever questioned that ramp, I was ready. Turns out, somebody did. The very next morning, I opened the front door and found a bright orange violation sticker plastered across it like we'd been condemned by the city. It was so obnoxiously orange it looked radioactive. Across the top, in big red letters, it said, "Notice of violation." I stood there in my socks, coffee cooling in my hand, reading the rest. Unauthorized structural modification without HOA approval. Non-compliant materials and color scheme. Fine, $500. Correct within 5 business days, or incur an additional $100 per day. Signed by someone named Karen, President, Willows Community Association. I actually laughed at first. That weird, disbelieving laugh people do right before their blood pressure spikes. Because we weren't in the HOA. Not sort of. Not maybe. Not, depending on interpretation. We were not in it. I showed my wife, and she just blinked at me and said, "That's not even their business." Exactly. So I called the number, figuring this was some clerical mess that would get cleared up in 30 seconds. Nope. A woman answered in the voice of somebody who had definitely described herself as a force in at least 3 board meetings. I gave her our address, and I heard keyboard clicking. Then she said, real smug, "Oh yes, the unauthorized wheelchair ramp. I personally documented it yesterday. That metal structure is completely inappropriate for our neighborhood aesthetic. It looks industrial, and frankly, it lowers property values." The way she said wheelchair ramp, you'd think we'd installed a junkyard carousel in the front yard. I kept my voice calm and told her there had to be a mistake. Our property wasn't part of the Willows. She cut me off. Everyone on that street falls under our jurisdiction. I've managed this community for 8 years. I know what I'm talking about. Paint it beige to comply with neighborhood standards. Or remove it. Paint it beige. Like the problem was the color, and not the part where she was threatening a disabled woman over access to her own front door. Then she hung up on me. That was the moment I stopped assuming she was confused and started realizing she was dangerous. So that afternoon, I went to the county courthouse, pulled the deed, pulled the plat map, pulled every property record tied to our lot. And there it was, plain as day, Our property was unincorporated, non-HOA, never annexed, never bound by covenant, sitting outside the Willows boundary line by about 50 feet. 50 feet. We were literally on the wrong side of their fence. I sent Karen a polite certified letter asking for any documentation proving the HOA had authority over our property. Covenants, CC and RS, annexation records, whatever she thought gave her power over my house. What came back wasn't proof. It was a cease and desist letter. Not from a lawyer, of course, just more boardroom cosplay. They claimed continued noncompliance, threatened to remove the ramp as unauthorized debris, and warned of escalating penalties. And then it got weird. Like movie villain weird. I came home from work the next day, and there was a security guard in a white uniform sitting in a golf cart at the end of my driveway with a clipboard. Just sitting there, watching. I walked over and asked what he was doing, and this poor guy, who clearly did not get paid enough for whatever nonsense this was, told me he'd been hired by the HOA as a courtesy officer to monitor the property and make sure no further unauthorized modifications were made. I said, "Monitor what exactly?" He gave me this little shrug and said, "Just following orders, sir." So now my wife has a wheelchair ramp, and apparently I have my own suburban parole officer. That night, my elderly neighbor called. Sweet lady, lived there forever, the kind of person who has seen enough nonsense in life to recognize it by the sound of the engine. She said, "Karen's been driving around taking pictures of houses all week. She tried me last month over my garden gnomes." I laughed. Then I realized she was serious. That was the twist, really. It wasn't just us. Karen had been freelancing as Empress of the zip code, harassing anyone she thought looked easy to push around. We just happened to be the first people who had both the paperwork and the rage to push back. By Thursday, another notice showed up. According to Karen, we now owed $2,500 in fines and late fees. She threatened to place a lien on our home if we didn't pay. That was when I stopped being polite. I spent Friday researching real estate attorneys and found one who specialized in HOA overreach. Monday morning, I sat in his office downtown, folder in hand, while he read through everything: deed, maps, notices, photos of the security guard, permit records, all of it. After about 20 minutes, he leaned back, looked at me over his glasses, and said, "Well, this is straightforward. They have absolutely zero authority over your property." That felt good. Then he kept talking, and it felt even better. Because Karen hadn't just been wrong. She'd been stupid in a legally ambitious kind of way. Threatening to remove a wheelchair ramp could trigger Fair Housing Act issues. False fines and bogus lien threats could become harassment and slander of title claims. Posting security to watch our house opened the door to intimidation arguments. He said, "If you want, I can send a simple letter and this probably goes away." I thought about my wife's face the first time she used that ramp. The relief, the dignity, the peace. Then I thought about Karen saying it lowered property values. I asked him, "What if I don't want it to go away quietly?" That man smiled like a mechanic hearing an engine problem he already knew how to fix. By Tuesday morning, certified letters went out to every member of the Willows HOA board, not just Karen, every single one of them. The package included proof our home was outside their jurisdiction, a detailed legal explanation of why they were exposed, and notice that we were prepared to file a federal fair housing complaint for harassment of a disabled resident over a protected accommodation. It laid out every threat, every fake fine, every demand, every day that golf cart watchdog sat outside our home. And then came the number. $5,000. Legal fees, emotional distress settlement. Pay it, withdraw everything, apologize. Or enjoy explaining yourselves to HUD and civil court. That letter hit like a grenade. The very next day, I got a call from the HOA board secretary, and the man sounded like someone had just told him his house was on fire and the hose was decorative. He wanted a meeting immediately. Thursday morning, all 7 board members showed up at my attorney's office. Karen did not. Turns out, once the rest of the board finally looked at the documents, they realized she'd been acting like a suburban dictator without proper approval, and in the process had dragged the entire association into potential federal trouble. The meeting lasted less than an hour. They withdrew every fine. They confirmed in writing that our property was not under HOA authority. They fired the security company. They agreed there would be no further monitoring, no future contact, no more threats. Then they handed over a check for $5,000. And the best part, Karen resigned effective immediately. Apparently the board made it very clear that step down quietly, was the only option standing between her and an even uglier public mess. Friday afternoon, I was in the garage when one of their golf carts rolled up. For half a second I thought Karen had come back for one final performance, but it was just the board secretary dropping off one last envelope. Inside was a formal letter on official HOA letterhead stating that our house had never been, was not now, and would never be part of the Willows Community Association. They even attached a property list showing all addresses under their authority, and ours specifically excluded as an outlot. That's the kind of paperwork I frame mentally. That weekend, I did something petty. Tasteful but petty. I had a small blue neon sign made for our front window. It said, "Not a member." Nothing huge, nothing trashy, just enough glow to make the point. My wife called it childish. She was also laughing when she said it. And here's the thing this whole mess taught me. Bullies love paperwork when they think you won't read it. They love titles, stamps, warning notices, official language, all that theater. They count on exhaustion. They count on people being too busy, too intimidated, too broke, or too worn down to check the facts. But power gets real shaky when somebody asks, "Show me where that authority comes from." And the deeper lesson hit me later, after the adrenaline wore off. A lot of cruelty doesn't show up wearing horns. Sometimes it shows up with a clipboard and a community logo, pretending it's just enforcing standards. Sometimes discrimination hides inside words like aesthetics, compliance, property values. Dress it up enough, and people start mistaking it for order. But it's still cruelty, just better dressed. 6 months later, our ramp still catches the afternoon sun. My wife still rolls down it with that same quiet confidence. The Willows hired a new management company, started boundary training, and suddenly got very interested in federal disability law. Funny how expensive lessons improve people's memory. As for Karen, I never saw her again. What I do see every so often is one of those little HOA golf carts drifting around behind the gates, staying very carefully on their side of the line. And every time I catch that blue glow in our front window after dark, I smile. Because karma didn't just tap her on the shoulder, it backed over her with a certified letter, a settlement check, and a public resignation. So now I'm curious. When somebody with fake authority tries to bully a family over something as basic as disability access, where do you think the line is between following rules and straight-up abuse of power? And if this had happened to your family, would you have settled for the apology? Or gone even harder? Drop your take in the comments. And if you've ever dealt with HOA nonsense, power-tripping officials, or somebody who thought a title made them untouchable, tell your story too. I want to hear where you draw the line between order, justice, and revenge.